Hello, everyone. My name is Tanya Cameron, and I'm a general education teacher at Henderson Middle School, and I teach sixth grade ELA. This is my data overview pre and post COVID, focusing on demographics, achievement trends, and areas for improvement. Intended audience is ELA teachers, administrators, and the school improvement team. The purpose of this presentation is understanding the story behind the data. Our goal is to interpret the data to guide decisions that improve student outcomes in ELA. Some guiding questions to consider. As we review the data, keep these questions in mind. What trends are emerging over time? Which student groups are making progress and which need support? How can this information guide instructional decisions? First, we're going to look at our students enrolled. In 2019, we had 909 students. We dropped in 2023 to 820 and then dropped again in 2024 to 811. Here we have our 3-year comparison of students by demographics. HMS has become more diverse over the past 5 years. As you can see here, our Black students increased slightly while our white students decreased over the 3 years, 2019, 23, and 24. Our Hispanic and multiracial populations grew steadily. Our English language learners grew. However, our students with disabilities slightly decreased from 13.7 in 2019 and 2023 to down to 11% of our students in 2024 were with disabilities. And here's our 3-year attendance data. Attendance is very important. It has a big impact on student achievement. Attendance declined during COVID and hasn't fully recovered. As you can see here, 2019 we had 86.61%, and then we dropped to 2023, and 2024 we're still below what we were in 2019, but it looks like we're on a gradual rise there. And here you can see the total number of students as we saw on the other slide. And this is students absence less than 10% of enrollment days. You can see here attendance declined during COVID and hasn't fully recovered. As you can see, pre-COVID 2019, we were all groups were in the mid to high 80s. 2023, our Black, Hispanics, and our English language learners were still in the 80 range, while our multiracial, white, and students with disabilities were struggling with their attendance. So only like 66% of students with disabilities were absent less than 10%, and so on. And then in 2024, all of the groups were back in the 80s, except the multiracial population and again the student with disabilities. Those two groups still struggling with their attendance, and that is something for us to consider as we look at the performance level with these two groups. And here we're showing our students with chronic absenteeism, the students with disabilities and without disabilities, because that is one of our low performing groups is our students with disabilities. And we see here that 66.4% of them have chronic absenteeism, whereas our students without disabilities, only 33.6 have chronic absenteeism. And then over here, we just broke it down within 2 years, 23-24 and 22-23 year, students with disabilities and students without. As you can still see, the ones with disabilities are still struggling those 2 years with their attendance. Something to look at. Here we have teachers by gender and race. Female teachers remain the majority with a slight increase in black teachers. Overall racial diversity is limited at HMS per teacher. And you can see here the total number of teachers, 52 in 23-24, 49 in 22-23, and 51 in 19-20, 19 through 2020 school year. So we have increased our teacher and showed a slight increase in male versus female and black versus white. But still there's a big gap there. And something that's very concerning is in the ELA department at HMS, we have no male teachers and only one black teacher teaching ELA. So again, with those low performance groups being male over female and then black over white, that is something that we need to consider, is just having that more a diverse teaching staff supports stronger student relationships and equitable instruction. So it's very important there. Here we show ELA performance by gender. Females consistently outperform males, though the gap is narrowing. And again, that needs to be looked at as far as no male teachers in the ELA department. The female distinguished learners grew 14.2% with only 24.3% in the beginning. So this blue and red bars, these are the bars that we need for them to lower, while we need the green and yellow to rise. And you can see here the total number of students compared with male and females, and how that there's a big gap there between the red and blue bars. Okay, and then over here we have our student performance by subgroup. Okay, so we are seeing our Hispanic students achieve the highest proficiency and distinguished rates combined. Multiracial students performed strongly. Okay, so this is our 2 or more. Whilst our white students remain stable and near state averages, and then our black students showed some improvement, but they still remain below state proficiency levels. And again, that's that red and blue that we need to see less of. Students with disabilities improved, but still show the largest gaps, emphasizing the need for focused interventions. Okay, over here we have more of our race comparison between HMS and the state. And you can see here how we're improving across all 3 years. Well, this is the 2 years, 2019 and 2020, and how we performed based versus the state. And again, it's that students with disability that is showing the more on the beginning and developing, as well as the black students. So look like, we're kind of aligned with the state, but we really got to focus on and closing those gaps. Here is our summary HMS compared to state for the amount of students that reach distinguished and proficient levels. Here we show that in 2019 we were at 34.16%, where the state was 46.3%. Okay, so across 3 years, the state ELA proficiency rates remain higher than Henderson Middle School, although both experienced learning loss during COVID. Henderson's recovery has been slower. Okay, recent gains in 2024 show positive movement, but the gap between the school and the state performance persists there. So we need to work on that. And this is our CCRPI. We did improve over the years. We were 63 in 2018. We dropped in 2019 to 62, but now we're back up to 71.6. So really close to the state levels as well with our CCRPI grade. Here's our target scores. This is by target, and then the score for our between our races and our students with disabilities. Here, Black students improved to meet target 41 to 45. Okay, so they went 41 here, and then they scored 45 here. Our white students, again, strong and surpassing target with a 64 and 59 here between the 2 years. All right, Hispanic students maintained high performance. They were near target but didn't quite reach it, but they're still up there in that high performance. All right, and then we have our students with disability just kind of stayed flat. Both years they scored a 34, so not meeting target either year. Our Hispanic students are 2 or more races also declined. So they went from 60 to 48. So again, something we need to look at, the 2 or more races, our Black population, and our students with disabilities. And here we show our strengths. Okay, our Hispanic students demonstrated high proficiency and distinguished levels, indicating strong achievement there. Students that identify as 2 or more races also performed well, meeting or exceeding standards. Um, and then we have our weaknesses, and that's where we have low growth performance with our Black students and our students with disabilities, and then the low diversity ratio among our teachers. So that is our 2 main concerns and focus with this data overview. Um, Black and African American students had the highest percentage of beginning learners, so this is showing significant need for targeted support. And then we have our follow-up questions. Very good to look at here. How many of our students with disability are Black? Because that is our our two low performing areas. So there's a question there of the students with disability that are performing low, are they also in the Black category? So that's something to look at for the future. And then I have included 2 slides here for next steps for ELA performance improvement, here and here. And then my last slide is my reference slide where I got my information and my data from. Thank you for reviewing this data overview with me.